By now, you've probably heard about the knockout game, the catch-all term used to describe seemingly random acts of violence where assailants attempt to knock out unsuspecting victims in a single blow. Well, according to police, at least 10 incidents of the so-called knockout game have been reported in Brooklyn alone in the last 2 months. News reports and the attendant grainy security footage depicting the attacks have spread all across the country. Here's a look at some of the coverage so far.
Can you imagine just walking down the street, minding your own business, when punches you in the face for no reason at all?
Knockout game.
Knockout games.
So-called knockout game.
Knockout game.
The knockout game, a violent national trend.
Teenagers are jumping on a brutal bandwagon knockout.
Knockout game.
Well, it's called the knockout game. Police fear the knockout game has been spreading.
Incidents reported in Philadelphia,
From San Diego to St. Louis and Chicago.
New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pittsburgh.
Despite speculation otherwise, authorities say there's no evidence so far that any of the attacks are racially motivated.
They're sold a bill of goods by the civil rights people that white society is the fault. Because you're unhappy, it's the whites doing it to you, and so they're whacking whites.
You are one of those people who thinks that this is racially motivated, no?
Yeah, let's bell the cat, Dr. Hill. White Girl Bleed a Lot is about an epidemic of black mob violence all around the country and how the media ignores it and denies it. The knockout game is just one manifestation of this black mob violence, the black on white crime, and several of your guests are excellent examples of the denial, excusing, condoning of this stuff that I documented with videos, witnesses, and victims hundreds and hundreds of times all over the country.
Well, I'm not sure if several of the guests have done anything yet in that regard. I don't think anyone's actually said anything about that yet. But talk to me about what you're documenting, what you're seeing, and why you think it's racially motivated mob violence, as you put it, black on white.
Well, I call it racially motivated because every crime by itself is really insignificant. And most do not feature, like what happened in Brooklyn a few weeks ago, a lot of racial expletives with witnesses. But I call it racially motivated because if you look at it, if you put them together and look at them, we see that this violence is black mob violence exponentially out of proportion. And now, because there's so many witnesses or so many videos.
Let me hold on, Colin. Let me pause you for 1 second. My question for you is: explain to me how this is racially motivated. Absent racial expletives, absent the evidence of a hate crime, absent people saying it was about race, are you saying that just by virtue of black people doing it to white people is racially motivated?
I'm saying that because the ratio is so exponentially out of proportion, 90, 95, 99%. Of the people involved in the knockout game, 90% of all the other stuff I document is black. I'm saying I'm not going to try to read anybody's mind, but I am going to say, look at what's going on.
Well, then how do you know it's racially motivated?
There's going on, Dr. Hill, and I really would like you to figure it out as well.
Well, the way, as a social scientist, the way I figured out is to actually do research, right? But I guess my concern is that if we take 10 anecdotes, the plural of anecdote is not data, right? If we just take 10 anecdotes, we can't then say we have data that supports the idea that these people are doing it for this reason. Like you said, I can't get in their heads and say, but I wouldn't assume that because something happens that it's racially motivated. For example, if people go into a suburban neighborhood to steal cars, they go there because that's where the nice cars are. It's not necessarily racially motivated. The owners of those cars could be white. The overwhelming proportion of them could be white, but I don't think the car theft was racially motivated. It was Mercedes motivated.
Nice try, Dr. Hill, but nobody's buying that.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not making a claim. I'm asking you to explain what I just said and put it in a context that shows that it's either true or not true. How do we know that it's not simply motivated by the fact that they want somebody vulnerable or that the person, I'm not saying that it's a complete accident. I'm saying if in fact it's 99%, which I'm not sure is true in fact, but if that were the case, how do we know that that's why they're doing it?
See, I don't know why they're doing it. I'm just telling you who is doing it. I'll let you figure out why they're doing it. No. But I will tell you that this epidemic of black mob violence is transparently from the witnesses, the videos, so many stories now, thousands of stories. And while other people on the panel and even yourself may deny it's racially motivated, there are so many people that
I'm just asking for evidence. I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm asking for evidence.
They brag about it. 2 Chainz has a video called Start a Riot. That thing has 12 million hits on YouTube last I checked. There's something going on, Dr. Hill.
Okay.
Instead of denying
help me
it,
connect the dot.
To explain what's going on.
Most black violence is perpetrated against other blacks, and there are statistics obviously to prove that. But in this case, when you have blacks in almost every case going up to and I don't know that Dov, I had some trouble with the hearing, but I don't know if Dov Hyken, Assemblyman Hyken, mentioned, if he didn't, I'm sure he would have, that in the cases he mentioned, it's usually, if not all, blacks going up and doing it to Jews. But this knockout game is blacks on whites. Again, you have to ask them why they're doing it. But for crying out loud, we're told, we're told every little thing. If you're against Obama, the leftist media, and this is supposed to be about media coverage, the leftist media says you're a racist. You don't like Obama because he's black. Can't be about his policies.
Hold on, but Steve, hold on. Let me pause you, Steve.
But when blacks go up to whites and beat them, oh, gee, you think it's racially motivated? No, it just so happens that that's who was there.
Well, so two things, Steve. First of all, the point about if we were to unpack the first point you made, which is that blacks accuse white people of being racist for not opposing Obama, for opposing Obama, you would say that logic is wrong.
I said the media. Media.
Yeah, but you spent your entire last 4 years critiquing that position, saying that it's wrong to assume that because someone does something against someone of a different race that is racially motivated. So
I'm talking about apples and oranges here.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're invoking the very argument that you've dismissed.
It's racially motivated. Trying to get into what I'm saying is,
let me ask you a question, Steve.
The media has no qualms about getting into the minds and the hearts of average people who they don't know.
But you say that it's wrong to do that,
the president, and say must be because he's
no, but
black.
hold on, Steve. But Steve, we both agree that it's wrong to do that, right? It's wrong to get in the heads of people and assume their motivation when it comes to why they oppose Obama. So now let's take it back to this issue. If we operate from the assumption that it's wrong to get into people's heads and assume why they're doing it, why?
No. My point was the media has no problem doing it when it comes to criticism of Obama. But here you are sitting there and saying that if it's 99%.
Hold on, Steve. Let me ask you a question. But hold on, Steve.
Whites, gee, you think that's a coincidence?
Okay, so Steve, let me ask you the questions now, Steve. I've heard your point fully.
People around for them to beat up?
Steve, let me ask you two questions.
Give me a break.
Let me ask you two questions, Steve.
Yeah.
First question is, do you agree that it's wrong for the media to assume the motivations of white people?
You're missing my point.
I understand your point, but now I'm asking you a question. It's a question. And I'm just my only request, my humble request to you, Steve, is that you answer the question.
There's no way to
time out, Steve. All right, I got to move on then. Steve, I'm happy to talk to you, but you have to answer the question. If you don't want to answer the question, I'll move on. Are you willing to answer the question?
Obama. Of course it's wrong.
Okay.
But when blacks are continuously in this game going after whites, when there's plenty of blacks around and they're not getting victimized, you've got to start putting two and two together.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. On what basis do you draw the conclusion that the knockout game is only happening from blacks to whites? Where are you drawing that evidence from?
From everything I've seen and every statistic I've heard and every case I've heard of.
I'm asking Steve, I'm not arguing the point. I'm simply asking.
You're not arguing the point while you're raising the question.
Because I'd like the answer to the question.
Can I address that point?
I'd like the answer to the question. As a journalist, my job is to ask you questions about where you get your evidence from. It doesn't mean that I'm arguing with you. I'm just asking the answer.
I don't have the hard statistics in front of me. Have you seen a case where the knockout game has been black on black? I haven't.
Based on your perspective, the media is twisting this story. Why does the media not want to tell the story that you think it should be telling?
I don't know. Why does the media not want to tell the story 90% of the time? Why did an award-winning gay journalist write a book about the death of Matthew Shepard that dispelled every notion that we believe to be true, and not one morning show, not one network would touch him or put him on their show? You tell me while the media does what the media does, Doc. You probably know better than me because you work for a lot of the ones that are guilty as charged.
I don't know about that, but
oh, please. Whether it's race, Quanell X was on my show the other day. He said, absolutely. If this was white on black, it would take two instances. And Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, and they'd be out in the streets. The media would talk about nothing else but that. You know it's true. That's the way the media is. They have an agenda, and that's what they push for.
The evidence is this is an exponentially out of proportion. Enormous amount of black people are playing out of doing this compared to white people. That I don't see how any reasonable person could deny that. Now, I'm not saying what the causes are, the solutions are. I'm just talking to the deniers who deny this exists.
You are saying what the causes are because you're saying it's racially motivated, right?
No, it's an observation. That's not real, so I'm saying it's an observation. If this happens overwhelmingly and 90 to 100% of the people involved are black, I would say there's something racial going on, doctor.
Is it possible for a black person to commit a crime against a white person and not be racially motivated?
Give me a specific example.
I walk up and punch a white guy in the face.
You do that because you're angry. There's an enormous amount of racial animosity that exists today. People aren't talking about it.
If a black guy punches a white guy in the face, is there any other reason other than racial animosity? Is there any other possible reason?
If it happens every day for a long period of time, the same guy, the same crowd, I would say there's something racial going on, yes.
No, but my question is there, so you're saying if an isolated incident, it's possible for it not to be racially motivated?
Oh, see, isolated incidents to me are not significant. But when you connect them with other stuff, and you look at it, and it's incredibly out of proportion.
But I guess what I'm asking is, once you go from the individual to the collective, how does the solution automatically become racial?
Because it's pure statistics. If you have 13% of the people involved in 13 crimes in a row, I happen to know the numbers. The chances of that being a random crime are infinitesimal.
No one is saying, hold on. No one said they're random. The question isn't whether there's hold on. The question isn't whether there's reason for it. The question is, why do you assume that the reason is racially motivated?
Listen, doctor, instead of playing these silly little word games.
No, this isn't a word game.
Why don't you look at this problem we have with racial violence, black mob violence, incredibly we have witnesses, victims, videos. Everybody's in denial.
How many cases have you studied yourself of this? Give me a number.
In my book, I document over 1,000 cases of black mob violence. The judge in St. Louis says there's one person is responsible for 300 cases. There's something going on, doctor.
And 1,000 cases of black mob violence over what period of time?
Last 2 years, 3 years.
And how many cases of white mob violence have occurred over the last 2 years?
I documented 3.
So you're saying in the entire 2 years, only 3 groups of white people have committed crime? Mob crime.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What a silly word game. I didn't think you were a silly person until right now.
You said that you've documented 3, right? That's what you said, right? Did I misunderstand you?
I think I documented 3, yes.
Okay, so are you saying those are the only 3?
No, I wrote 200,000 words on this. Why are you making up stuff I didn't write?
I guess, no, I'm not making up anything. I'm asking you the question. You're saying that 1,000 instances of black mob violence have occurred in the last 2 years, and 3 have occurred in white mob violence.
What I'm saying is this. Absolutely, it's way out of proportion. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay. You do know that criminologists completely reject everything you've just said, right?
I do know the liberal criminologists do. I do know there's a prison psychologist named Marlon Newbern who says I don't go far enough.